Welcome back to the Occult Rejects. Today we are joined by David Linder, author of Advanced Rune Magic, The Greater Mysteries of Nordic Spirituality. This is a book that takes the runes beyond the shallow idea of ancient letters used for divination and treats them as something much deeper, living symbols, gateways of contemplation, and tools of magical and spiritual transformation. The runes have always existed in that strange area between language, myth, memory, magic, and power. They are letters, but they are not only letters. They are sounds, signs, names, poetic images, cosmological keys, and in many magical traditions, forces that the practitioner does not merely interpret but enters into. David's work focuses on the 24 Elder Futhorc runes, looking at each rune as a distinct interface with the greater mystery, while grounding the work in older source material like the Eddas and the classic rune poems. What makes this conversation especially interesting for us is that David is not only approaching the runes as historical artifacts or academic tools. He is looking at them as practical spiritual tools, something that can be meditated on, embodied, contemplated, and used in daily life for self-transformation, purpose, healing, and deeper contact with Nordic spirituality. So today we're going to get into the deeper mystery of rune magic, where the runes come from, what they are, how they were preserved in poetry and myth, how they can be worked with today, and what happens when a symbol stops being something you look at and becomes something that looks back into you. That is enough out of me. And before we introduce David himself, let me introduce the other rejects joining the show. Sanre, my man, thank you so much for making it this morning. Always love having you on, sir. Please let everybody know what's going on with you and where they can find all your amazing stuff.
Yeah. That was a fantastic intro you just did, by the way. That was great. That was a good one.
I thought it was perfect. I even said prior. Sometimes I think these things, do stuff.
Yeah, those are really good ones. So my name is Sanre. I'm gonna start taking this more seriously. I am the head teacher at the Order of Chaos Occult University. I have a book out you can pre-order now called Chaos Witchcraft, which is a system that evolved out of chaos magic. I was a student of the late great Peter J. Carroll. And you can find all my work at youtube.com/The Order of Chaos or theorderofchaosmagic.com, which will soon be transitioning over to chaoswitchcraft.org.
I love it, man. I love it. Thank you again very much for jumping on. Always love you being here, my man. And we got Zeralath. What is going on, Zeralath? I figured if we were talking about runes, we couldn't do it without him here. So, and it worked out.
Yeah, man. It's good. I'm super excited. For those who know me, I've been doing the runer thing, building my relationship with them over the last 8 years. So I've got a little principle where I don't do readings on my own accord. So I work with Stein Fox over on Greyhorn Pagans, and every week I do tarot rune reading types over there. And then I'm also doing it in my personal magical practice and things like that. So I work with them in more than just divination, myself practicing in my own animist magical way that I've been working very hard to develop on traditions and a little bit of something different. And I'm really excited to be here talking with someone practicing the old ways.
No, I'm glad you were both. I'm glad you were able to make it on with them. And finally, did you want to plug? Did you plug your any of your links or anything real quick? Your show or any of your social media?
Yeah. So Zeralath Eternal channel here on YouTube to keep up with my things. Every once in a while, I cough up a guitar jam. You can go to Zeralath Shreds if you like extreme music and you want to watch me suffer through a flow state of stuff that I can't write, but I play. I do that, and then if you end up liking what you see with my readings with Stein and you want a personal one with me, zeralath@yahoo.com, and we'll set up a private session.
Awesome. Thank you very much, my man. And finally, David, please let everybody know anything that you want to promote, remind people about the book or anything that you got that you would like people, to get in contact with you or anything.
Yeah, well, I'm David. I live in Switzerland, and I've been working with runes for about 10 years now. And I focused very much on the practical application, but I try to base it as much as possible on historical research. So, yeah, I see the Norse mythology, the runes, etc., as an animistic system mostly, and as a system that can teach you how to reconnect with the world, with the nature around you, of course, with other people as well, and with the greater mystery through the runes. So yeah, that's the center of what I'm trying to achieve. And the results were so incredible over the last 10 years that I just wanted to try at least and share it with other people as well, hoping that they might profit from it in their own way. And that's why I basically wrote the book. Yeah, so
Love it. Well said. Same question I ask all my guests when they come on for occult and magic stuff, which is almost all of them anyway. What got you into this? Like, well, first I want to know, was Norse even like the first thing you got into, and what got you even into looking into this stuff or this type of life?
I grew up in an extremely Christian environment, and so to make up for that, I became an atheist, obviously, because that's the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, I've done that
But
myself.
Yep.
that didn't really work out, and yeah. So, but then the Norse thing was the only thing I ever really practiced. So, and as far as I can tell, that's probably what I will do for the rest of my life, because the system is so deep and so complex and works so well for me that so far I had no intention of, or felt no need to switch systems so far. You never know. If you do that kind of work, you never know what happens tomorrow. So I you can't tell for sure, but yeah, that's the best I can tell you at the moment. And as to how I came to it, is that, well, I had a weird life, so things weren't going well, and I saw Vikings on TV, and I remembered, oh, someone gave me an Edda all these years back, and I went to my bookshelf, I picked up the book, I read through the whole thing about these gods and the giants and Thor bashing in their head and the dwarfs and the elves, and it just made total sense to me. So I was like, this is awesome. And I really got into studying it. And the more I looked into it, the more it started to manifest in my own life, to produce positive results, to help me to reconnect, to heal stuff that wasn't fine, to find more joy and compassion and whatever in my life, more productivity. And that's why I stayed with it so far, because it works. That's that's how I got into it, and that's why I stayed.
I love it. It's interesting even for me. I mean, I never got huge into it, but my my first kind of exposure to like blatantly, I guess, occult was I remember I think it was in elementary school. For some reason they had a book in there, Norse mythology for children or kids or something like that. And it was actually like I tried finding it not too long ago, and the author actually made like three, like Norse, I think Egyptian, and something else. But yeah, I came across that, and for some reason that stuff really caught my attention. And I remember even the art was like just impactful on me. I was just like, I've never seen like things, looking like it was definitely.
It's a very it's a very interesting combination. I think it's, in a way, it's a very archaic system. I mean, even the runes themselves, the shapes, the symbols, but if you get into it, there's so much sophistication behind it. There's so many layers to it. There is so many. It connects to all the layers of yourself, psychology, the mental aspects, the physical world, the spiritual world. That, yeah, and I think this tension that this brings is something that I find very fascinating about it. Yeah.
Sunray or Zeralath, did you want to say anything or ask anything? I don't want to keep
Well, I mean, like, So here's what just the first thing that's on my mind about the runes. So I love runes. In fact, a couple years ago, I pretty much replaced the traditional chaos magic sigil style of working magic with runes entirely, because they work better. So, David, why do you think that is?
Why they work?
Well, so okay, let me put it this way: there's. I'm not looking for the answer of why do symbols have an effect on the psyche. Like we're past that, right? We understand that symbols can have an effect on the psyche, but runes seem to have more of an effect than traditional sigils, or let's say other pre-existing sigil systems. In my experience, runic magic is faster and more effective at creating change either within yourself or in your environment. So I guess my question is, why are these particular symbols more impactful than others?
Yeah, well, it's hard to tell. My guess would be because it is an animistic system, it is directly linked to nature and all its aspects. So the biological aspects, the mental aspects, the psychology, but also the subconscious and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because these, I mean, how do you say that? They're so complex in all these ways that they are connected. I mean, that's exactly what the book is about, that you try to connect with these symbols on all the levels that they can offer. And I think that's also where the mythology is so powerful, because it's not a book like the Bible, which tells you that's the truth. But it's a story about a topic that works on many different levels, and it also will have different meanings depending on where you are in life, what your experiences have been. And I think this direct connection to this raw energy that you can find in nature is just something that probably charges them to that extent, because but that's I only can speak about my own experience, but my theory is everything that brought people to create that system at the time, the forces that shaped this system at the time, they're all still out there. The problem is we have lost the connection to that because we're so isolated from nature, from natural processes, and that's but they're still there. So if you reopen this connection, then the power that you can access through that is enormous.
Yeah, I fully agree. It's always occurred to me that there are certain symbols that you can. So I mean, the world of occultism is full of symbols, right? So a lot of people look at the seals that exist within the Goetia, for example, and they'll look at it and say, "Hey, this kind of looks like a computer chip," right? You've seen posts like that. Yeah. Kind of interesting, right? But the runes, they like hit you when you look at them, like you feel something. It's not speculative. At least that's been my experience, right? Which to me, that's what signifies to me, like fuck, there's something about this. And the only other symbol to me that has the same impact is the pentagram.
This is probably the most emotionally charged symbol that we have in our current society. I would agree with that, because it has been so present for so many centuries now.
Yeah.
But I think the runes had the same effect at the time when people saw it. If you look at certain sagas, how people react if someone is around who actually knows how to write runes, they're really respectful and sometimes scared. And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we went live, we were talking about kind of the difference between magic and self-transformation, or like what is generally perceived to be the difference. And I would say that those are two, at very minimum, if not the exact same thing, two sides of the same coin, right? So what does your practice look like, and how did it develop over time?
Well, it's hard to sum up 10 years within a few sentences, but
Sure.
I would say the main aspects for me are runes are not a classical magic tool as I understand Western occultism. They're gateways to aspects of a greater mystery, you know. So in order to connect to them, you really have to get into it. And what you get out of it also depends a lot on who you are. I mean, if you look at Raido, for example, which is the concept of movement, the experience for you will be very different if you're a traveling salesman compared to being a farmer.
Okay.
You know, so what I try to do is to really get into these concepts and make them come alive for me personally, you know, but based on on historical sources and based on practical application. The other aspect that was very important was to change my worldview from a dualistic, purely scientific worldview towards a more animistic idea of a universe that is alive and you can actually interact with.
Yeah.
And so I've done a lot of work with Yggdrasil and the Nine Worlds, which in my opinion are a very good representation of the human psyche and the world or the universe itself. And what I try to do, instead of trapping some dwarf and make it do my bidding, I try to forge connections with entities in all these worlds and try to get them on board. So what I still do on a bi-weekly level is I do mead workings for the triple goddess on full moons and for the ancestors and the whites, so the elves and the dwarves on new moons. So that's the most. I've been doing that for years now. I also have a daily practice, of course, where I just invoke the runes and then do meditation, and that depends very much on what's on the agenda for the day. You can invoke a rune like Ansus if you know today is a day where you need inspiration, or you can travel to Svartalfheim, and if you know there's something deep down there in your subconscious that's just not okay and you should look at. So that depends very much on what I feel is necessary in that specific day. So that's the two practices that are most regular for me at the moment.
Love it. It's very practical.
I was gonna say, how do you incorporate because the runes have a format of being effectively at 45-degree angles and 90-degree angles as far as the lines correspond to establishing the forms. And of course 45 reduces to 9. It's all working within the Holy Nine. How is the numerology incorporated in your rune work?
Not that much, because I'm not good with numbers. I work a lot in 3s and 9s, of course, because these are the most obvious numbers. I mean, 3 is just something connected to the sacred. Odin shows up with 2 of his brothers to recreate the world, for example. So that's something that keeps repeating. And 9 seems to be English is not my first language, I'm sorry. Initiatory number, which keeps popping up, like Odin hanging on the tree for 9 days to receive the runes. But I'm not very good at math, so I'm not very good with the numerology aspect of the runes, to be honest.
That's okay, because I had to kick myself in the ass and get at least some basic stuff down myself too. I'm much more of a feral human being.
That's fine. I mean, they work different for everyone anyways, but the main what's important is that they work. That they produce results. That's the thing that is really essential.
The numerology in general is one of those topics where I'm like stuck between being highly skeptical and highly interested. You know what I mean? Because it makes sense that if you want to look at the world through like the Pythagorean lens, or even through the lens of like simulation theory, that reality is made out of numbers. You can say reality is made out of information, right? And it's code, and code happens in numbers. There's numbers in every aspect of reality, but like I think angel numbers are fucking bullshit. You know, so I don't know, man. Numerology to me is like there's something there, but I don't think we've really landed on exactly what it is. I mean, I even wrote about it in my book because I think it's interesting, but it's not, to me, it's not nearly a system of divination like astrology is, right? Like astrology will hit you, smack you in the face with how accurate it can be. Numerology, it's like sometimes, maybe, I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, like to me, the numerology hits kind of on basic levels because I also play with the tarot, right? The minor arcana in particular, which is faithful to the single digit code, right? And you look across number all over the world, with the exception of who acknowledges 0, everything is the single digit code. There's nobody that has a single digit that is their representation of like 10, 11, 12, 13. Like they start compounding.
Yeah, there's only 9 numbers.
There's only 9 numbers. Like anywhere in the world, nobody created a base 12 single digit system for no reason. It has to be 9.
Yep.
Right? So that tells
what
you
I'm saying. So numbers seem to be an intrinsic part of reality. They aren't. I don't think that we invented numbers. I think we discovered numbers. Right? We assigned the shapes that we call the names 1 through 9, right? The sounds and the shapes. But from the moment of the Big Bang, anytime that there's more than one of anything, then numbers exist. They were brought into existence then.
Yeah, exactly. Like you can have one atom, then you zoom into that atom, and then you realize that the atom is made up of 3 things.
And then immediately, just the way the human brain works, have to assign numbers to them. Like there's 2 of these things now. I have 2 of them.
It's the quantification of things.
Yeah.
When you've created a sufficient enough awareness that you're able to count things, you can individuate.
Yes. But I mean, we're going off on a tangent here. I've never really thought of the runes in terms of numerology. It's an interesting idea, to say the least.
No, I get it though. I could see that. One thing I kind of just did want to go back on, I hate to go backwards a little bit, but like the idea of like why these may work better than others. Do you think it might be possible that because they've been practiced by so many people for so long, they've kind of almost become like egregores in themselves or thought forms?
I think it depends on how you approach them. I mean, I have this example in the book that if you start out, you're like sitting on an island which is surrounded by power, however you want to define that. So if you work with runes, you now start to scratch 24 grooves into the surface so something can trickle through. But if you actually look at the island, you can see there are actually 24 trenches. They have collapsed in some places, but they're already there. So if you dig there, a lot more will come through. So that's why I'm big on the historical foundation of this runic practice, because I think if we try to see the runes the way the people saw them that actually invented the system or started to practice the system, they will be much more effective. I think if you just sit down and you do something with runes, you meditate, and then you assign them your own interpretation, they will never be as powerful as if you approach it from that angle.
I can see that too.
The runes in my studies that I see is that for the most part, it was basically between the shaman and the king was the like some of the earliest like recorded uses that, because it was all part of things such as how like Odin was like a noble class god versus say Thor, who was more of a peasant class god, right? Does that make sense to you, or do you see it being further spread than just the elites of Norse society?
Well, you would have to ask a runologist, of course, for the most recent data, but there comes more and more evidence to light as far as I can see that literacy was more spread at the time than we thought. that there are actually notes that are clearly not of a sacred nature as well. The thing is, especially with Elder Futhark inscriptions, of course, they're too old. Partial materials have disappeared. But yeah, I cannot say for sure. It's very obvious that Odin is connected to the nobility and to the poets, and that's why he's so present in the sources that have survived. Because the people that wrote these poems that entertained the nobility were followers of Odin. That doesn't actually mean that he was more popular than Thor, for example. As you said, Thor seems to have been the most popular god with peasants and maybe with many warriors as well. Because Odin, he is a god of war, but he's not really ever taking part in battle, except through his berserkers, of course.
Right.
But Thor, he really gets into the thick of it. He fights, he goes out there, and he's the classical warrior type by character as well. He likes to drink and to have fun and then go out and fight. So that, I think, that appealed to a much broader audience at the time than Odin and his sneaky ways ever could.
Thor is more relatable.
Right, exactly.
What I think is funny is the most accurate depiction of Thor in the Marvel movies is the one where he's like depressed and drunk and fat. That's more the historically accurate Thor than the golden armor Thor.
Well, I see that Thor because as a runer, right? Thrisaz is his rune, and I see Fat Thor as there's Thrisaz in save. Homie's not taking care of himself. He's not the best defender of the universe that he could be. By the way, have you ever had Danksmjord? This is some of the best frickin' mead on the planet from Denmark.
Okay, good to know.
Nice. One thing I was wondering about, and I don't want to keep on harping on this too much because I do want to get more into his runes in the book. But when Sanre had mentioned before about why do you think these sigils might work stronger than other ones, and we were mentioning earlier about how sometimes I think these things have an effect on us. I do wonder if it's if I was to make my own sigil, using a planetary square or chaos, whatever, taking the letters and making a design out of it. I guess to me, I would see that, or even I think the Goetia, the way you brought that up earlier, I think that's another good example. The Goetia, to an extent, that sigil does have a character that it's associated with.
Yep.
It doesn't have this whole way of life, stories involved with all these other characters. I feel like the runes are part of something much bigger. So I wonder, even when you're looking at this and thinking about using it, all that stuff, I wonder, holds more weight in your head.
Totally.
To get your attention and to actually really seal it into you.
Yep. That's a really good point.
That's just going to have a little bit of a story of the thing you're creating. These runes are part of a whole mythology in Norse. You know what I'm saying? A whole system that makes it a lot more deeper, and I think takes up more of your mind, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
That's why each chapter has a mythology section, where each rune is connected to one aspect of the mythology. Of course, every rune is connected to all of the mythology, but I always try to find a story that really personifies one aspect, at least, of that rune rather well, and I did a retelling of that myth, because I also think that's an important aspect. This, as I said, the Eddas are not the Bible. They're not the word of God. They're poems that were created by poets to entertain people and to tell them about certain issues, sacred stuff, but also moral issues, etc. So I think this reconnection through myth is something that is very powerful and works very well in relation to the roots. So yeah, and I think it's important to retell them in order. That's why I brought up the Bible thing, in order not to stick to the letter. It's important to understand the dynamic that was behind the intention of the poet. What the story actually contains, and it's not about finding the perfect interpretation. It's really about connecting with the topic itself. And yeah, so I find that very fascinating in this system.
The do you know how to read in Old Norse, or are you depending on Swiss and English translations and such?
I know a little bit of Old Norse, and I know a couple people who actually have degrees in Old Norse. So if I'm really unsure about something, I think it's important, I have people that I can send it to. For example, I did a listing of all the mentions of giants in the Eddas. And so I sent it to a friend and said, look, I do not understand these kennings and stuff. And then he helped me out. So I try to get a feeling for it. I get a little bit into the Old Norse. If I feel it's essential to go deeper, I ask someone who knows it better than I do, because I'm not a linguist and I'm not an Old Norse specialist.
Yeah.
I'm really not.
Yeah. I leaned on my favorite translation has been the Chris Holm translation from like 1916. I highly recommend that. It's really nice. It puts the columns of the Old Norse next to kind of like an Old English-esque kind of verbiage, and it translates beautifully as a poetic way of speaking the translation in English. So that's one of the reasons why I like it. And any word I have a discrepancy with, I can check the column and then go online and pester Old Norse sources.
It's actually the translation I used most in my book, with his explicit permission to do so. So I agree with you. It's a really great translation to Chisholm. But it's, of course, it's only part of, I think it's only the poetic, or part of the Lays of the Gods. I think he didn't translate the heroic poems, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. Yeah, I think so. I don't know exactly who's there. I've read like the Volsung saga at least once.
Yeah, but
more
there are these stories about Sigurd, for example, or Helgi. They're also part of the Codex Regius. That's the basis for the Poetic Edda. And I think he just did like stuff like Lokasenna, Völuspá, stuff like that. You know, he didn't do the sagas about Sigurd and Helgi. But yeah, I agree with you. It's a great translation, and it's absolute. And it's you can get it for free online. Yeah. So if you enter Chisholm and Edda online, you will find a link and you can download it there, and it's really a great way to get into it. I agree.
Thank you.
Anybody have anything before I?
Nope, go for it, man.
You've even mentioned before about the rune poems, and the Poetic Edda, and I don't know if you mentioned the prose Edda, but your book draws from those three, as far as I understood. Which one of those sources helped shape your understanding the most, or I guess maybe influenced you the most?
For specific rune work, definitely the rune poems. I worked with them from the very beginning. The first thing I did was making rune cards. I cannot really visualize, so I need to paint stuff, and so I can look at it. And I wrote the rune poem of each rune on the back, even the very first time I did that. But I think the Eddas are very valuable in order to validate results that you get. If you, for example, if you do an Odin working and you have this very deep experience and Odin tells you that everything is love, then you can go to the sources, and after studying for about 5 minutes, you will realize that whatever you talk to, it definitely wasn't Odin. So you might have learned something about yourself, but definitely not about Odin. And for that, it's not a Bible-like thing, but it's a very useful guideline to verify results, especially if you try to interact with spiritual entities. Or that's what I found. So that's how I use it. I use the rune poems very strongly to connect with the runes and the mythology, very much to verify, because I mean, especially in the beginning, when you haven't practiced much, it's oftentimes very hard to differentiate between what is wishful thinking what is really just your own thought process and what is something genuine. And that's where I see the sources as being very valuable, because there you have something you can compare your results to. And it doesn't have to be an exact perfect match, of course, but it should be somehow aligning with the sources that you have available. And so that's how I mostly use the sources so far.
I like how you did throw that in there, that it may not have been actually Odin. I do think that is a thing, myself included. I'm sure when I was first getting into this stuff, your mind can run wild with fantasy. I think just because you want it to be the truth, and I think sometimes it's good to have something in there to be like, are you sure? Like, maybe just take a look at that again. So I do like how that. I think that's important, actually, when it comes to magic. I do think you need some sort of discernment, or some sort of checks and balances sometimes.
Yeah, if the gods always agree with you, something's going wrong.
How convenient, right?
Right. You might, we call it utiseta. That's basically the word for sitting out, and it's Norse meditation. So Dave might know a little bit about utiseta, or do you have a meditative practice? How do you meditate on the runes?
That depends. I mean, one of the things I did pretty early on is starting to construct a temple, like in upstairs. So I do some of the work there. So that's the really meditative aspects of it. But I do a lot of meditation outside. Sometimes really sitting down somewhere. I have some special places in the woods here, but sometimes it's also just walking through nature and trying to stay in a certain state of mind, to really see the world through Urus or through Thurisas or whatever you feel is you want to connect with. And then, of course, I mean, Utiset, I think, was connected to doing that at night, oftentimes on grave mounds and stuff like that. So in liminal spaces, and also in spaces that would induce that fear factor a little bit. That can very much help to get into alternate states of mind. So that's helpful too sometimes, but I cannot go out into the woods every night and do that kind of thing. So it really depends on the situation and the availability of what I can do, how much time I have, where I can go, and what is really I mean, sometimes you just have to do something, no matter if it's convenient or not. So yeah.
Thank you. Did anybody have anything else? All right.
No.
Your last answer actually worked out perfect for one of the questions I had. Because you mentioned rune poems being kind of, I guess, maybe a little bit more impactful. And yes, you did put those in the book. What do the rune poems preserve that mythology alone does not, in your opinion?
Well, the rune poems are debated, of course, because some scholars say they're just mnemonic devices to be able to remember the runes in the right order. But what I found is, I mean, we have only one rune poem, the Anglo-Saxon one, that treats all 24 runes. The Futhark was slimmed down to 16 runes during the Viking Age. So the younger Futhark only has 16 runes. So for 16 runes, we have 3 different rune poem stanzas, and for 8 of them, there's only one. But especially with the ones where you have 3 different stanzas, it's very interesting if you put them side by side to see how much they circle around the same topic. And even if they don't, to dig a little deeper and see how they're connected anyways. And that's just, for me, it was just a very useful way to gain information on these concepts. But I cannot say that people in the olden times studied these rune poems and that's how they learned the runes. I don't think so, but I think it's something that works very well for us today, and still gives us kind of a connection to the past of the runes and people that worked with runes. So
Well, why do you think there was so much? I seem to see a lot more work, and like I'm an Elder Futhark kind of guy. And I
me
know,
too.
I know the younger Futhark a bit, and I also do love some of the stuff that's in there. I like seeing things like these alternate versions of Hoglaws and Kenaz and whatnot. I think it expands on what runes can be. But why do you think things just got turned into like the younger Futhark and there's other like the younger Futhark is one of a couple of different, because I think the Saxon Futhark is also 16. There's like 3 different younger Futharks effectively, right? There became all this material under the 16th, like for magical theory, right? There's so many treatises from coming out of Iceland of younger Futhark used in practice, not as much with the elder. To it's kind of it's interesting how somebody didn't sit down with the elder and also went hog wild in its time.
Yeah, with the elder one, it's harder to tell because there are far less inscriptions that survive. The interesting thing about it is that when you look at the percentage, I mean, one thing that is interesting for people like us is there are many inscriptions that make no sense. There are words that do not mean something, like Glaucus, or there are other kind of formulas where you see these are magical formulas. Obviously, they do not make semantic sense. And I think if you look at the percentage of how many of these you have compared to inscriptions that actually make semantic sense, the highest. You find the highest numbers among older Futhark inscriptions. So it seems, at least from what we can tell, that the elder Futhark may have been more magically used than later versions, where it may have started to be more used as a general alphabet, and literacy probably spread more. But I cannot tell you for sure. I mean, these are all speculations in the end, because we do not have that many sources with runic inscriptions, that we can really confidently make any definite comments about that, or at least that's my how much I know.
Yeah, no, that sounds about the amount of mystery that I see there. Also, yeah.
But the Anglo-Saxon Futhark actually is more than 16. I think it's 28 signs. They actually added signs.
Oh, okay. I might be thinking of a different one then, because 28, that I don't know. I know the Bach Saga runes, that's up there. And that's the only other one I know that's more than the Elder Futhark.
Yeah, you can look it up, but the Frisian one, the Anglo, or even 33 signs and stuff like that. I mean, that had to do with the language, because the language developed. So in some cases you needed more signs, in some cases you needed less signs. But yeah, as I said, the runology side is not my main specialty, but that's just what I know about, what I can tell you about this. But yeah.
I have a thing I want to. So you guys might. I mean, David, I know that you're very focused on historical accuracy, and so this might not mean anything to you, but I find it to be interesting. I don't know, I forget who it was or when, but some later occultist, long after the Viking Age, right? Like in modern times, kind of stuck all the runes together. You can see that they come up with this thing they call the Web of Weird, right? Which is this cross shape, which you can derive all the runes from it, which I think is interesting. But the thing I think is actually interesting about that shape is that it fits right on top of the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. They resemble each other.
That's possible. Mike told me the same thing yesterday on his End of the Road podcast, but I have to say I'm not very familiar with the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, so
neither am I. I just think it's interesting.
I somewhat am, and I've never heard of this before. I'm like, how the hell?
Yeah, you can stick it right on top of the Tree of Life, which means you can also stick it right on top of the Flower of Life. So, I always looked at the runes and thought that there's got to be some kind of like natural connection to sacred geometry. And sacred geometry in itself is like there's some stuff about it that's legitimate and some that's like some new age nonsense. But it's
like numbers.
I have an
know
answer.
what's at the bottom of that.
I have an answer for that. I mean, like I've also seen the the Seal of Solomon, which I that's not what this tattoo is it represents. This is like the heart chakra. It's a Merkava situation there. But I've seen the Seal of Solomon being used as a cipher for the runes. But you're talking about the Web of Weird, which is the 9 crossing lines. Right. And now the Sephiroth of the Tree of Life, it's got its skew marks and it fits, but then people don't like to acknowledge the places where it doesn't fit. The way Edred Thorson, Stephen Flowers, does the Tree of Life in Norse mythology is correspondent with what I like to study in chelantic sciences. I don't use chelantic sciences things to a T, but when it comes to things like their magical forms, the numerology of the matter, because it's all operating in the 369, that Tree of Life, which is the Tree of Life that I acknowledge, that does fit, and it's a little bit different. It has a different flower of life because the numerology is a bit different. Because yes, that correlation is meant to be there. Good call. Interesting.
I am not a fan of Stephen Flowers. Put it that way.
Well, the 9 Midgard,
I had him on it.
What I've read, and I really loved it. And I'm not going to say anything else about Stephen Flowers because I don't know him.
Sure. Yeah. I talked to him once and I was put off by the conversation. I'll just leave it at that.
I got canceled because of having him on.
Yeah.
What?
Oh yeah, I lost people on the show. Yeah, there was people who stopped listening to the show. Oh yeah, I got called a Nazi and all that shit for having that guy on.
Oh, for having Stephen Flowers on?
Yeah.
I'd say that it's a weird thing because he's like kind of Nazi adjacent, but like that is that.
Well, he told the story on the show that did not help at all. He's talking about going to a Nazi castle and being given a Nazi.
Well, I didn't like talking to him.
I'm like, you're not making it sound any better, man.
Well, so here's the fucked up thing, right? So this is weird for me because I talked to the record. Just side railing here, but like I talked to a lot of my students and I encouraged them to read the Satanic Bible by LaVey. And I told them there's some things in here I disagree with, but for the most part, this is a good book. But everyone who came out of that camp, Michael Aquino, Stephen Flowers, etc., fuck those guys.
Hey, look, I'm with you, man. War Against the Trapezoid. I don't like the Von List interpretation.
I
consider it a blocky kind of postmodern. It fits wanting to be a brutalist freaking society, which is as far from being pagan as I can possibly think of.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly. It's fucking magical edgelords, man.
I love the swastika, but I do not love what Mean Mr. Mustache did with his aesthetics and his dark alchemy.
Someone's gonna sound clip that, man, and just put the part where you say I love the swastika and you leave it right there. I've made a swastika sigil out of the name Zeralath that I flash on my channel. It doesn't look anything like a fascist symbol because I know what the fuck I'm doing with magic. All right, I consider like the people who
embarrass our guest. Let's not embarrass our guest, okay?
All right.
No, I still think he did a lot of good research on the topic. I mean, there are lots of books out there that are out there just because of him. So
sound magical theory. It's just like I don't gotta like everything the rocket scientists did in Nazi Germany to appreciate getting on a jet plane.
Yeah, but the whole Nazi thing is mostly a Temple of Set connection.
Yes.
I think this was not really connected. Michael Aquino is somehow weirdly obsessed with.
I'm very
well, they were part of the same circle back then, right? They like I was saying, they came out of LaVey's camp. But my other thing with Stephen Flowers is just that it's like reading his work, even though it's very, very well researched, it's like eating dry white toast with nothing on it that has been like re-toasted, to extract all possible flavor from it.
He was
the
obviously
textbooks. He
trying to
writes
get.
textbooks.
He was obviously trying to appeal to an academic standard of the
Yes.
time, right? And as an old man, he's slowly had to get some sort of cool creds with the kids when he was only going a certain way, because he had to be set adjacent and all that stuff.
I listen. Then we'll get off the topic. I had him on because I do think he did work that way. I think is rather important. It did kind of reinvigorate rune use. But yeah, I really just wanted him to keep his affiliations with the Temple of Set and Aquino off the show, and it just didn't work out. So it didn't really go too well for me. Yeah, yeah. I mean, interesting guy to talk to. Yeah.
To be fair, the whole country has been reconciling issues, and so don't be too hard on yourself.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Is when it comes to I guess in myth, Odin receives the runes through kind of ordeal, sacrifice, hanging, and suffering. How important is that myth to understanding rune magic?
I think it's very important to understand the Norse worldview and the idea of their animistic system, which is not based on veneration, but on exchange through sacrifice. But that also means if you sacrifice, there has to be something in return. So this idea of just venerating some god and not getting anything back and then just venerating harder because you're just a human and this is a god doesn't work in that system. And I think that's the most important aspect of this sacrifice. And of course, he sacrifices self to self. So that's a very special kind of sacrifice. And I think that's very important in the rune magic sense. Because if you really want to transform yourself, you basically have to die. Because otherwise you will not be able to really change, because the old patterns will just keep trapping you up. And I interpret this line where it says, and I look down, and then he sees the runes, that he's really dying. He's looking down into hell and he's dying, and that's the moment when he can actually see the mystery. But even as a god, and I think that's also very interesting, he cannot comprehend that mystery. He cannot keep it within himself without shattering his core, and that's why he splits it up immediately into these 24 signs. So yeah, that would be my take on that. Does that make any sense?
No, I like that. I think that was a great answer. No, again, I even think just going back to, again, if it has to do with even part of the mind and your attachment to it, like you said earlier, the myth is extremely important. So I do think that helps add weight to the value working with, possibly, in the practitioner's mind. Or it even helps give sometimes allegory, I think, can help really deepen understanding as well.
Everything that moves you helps in the end, I mean, even physical exercise. Urus, for example, is a lot about physical strength. That's why in the book, in the practical section, what I tell people is go and work out. Yeah. It's not just don't go and lift a couple weights and then go home, but do it for half a year and do it every time until you really drop to the floor, and then you will get a feeling for what this rune stands for. The hour ox that it represents is a really mighty animal. That was a kind of cow that was what is it? I'm bad with English measurements. 1.80 meters, about as tall as a person today. So and that's what this rune represents. I mean, it also has strong ties to the ancestors and everything. But I think everything that stimulates you in a certain way can be used to deepen your connection to the runes and to the mythology. It's just, and that's, I'm not a stickler for the rules. I'm not saying everything has to be historical, but especially in that context, it's important to know where to place a certain input or a certain emotional state, how to attach, to which rune to attach it, to which myth to attach it, and not just go crazy and create your own system. I think there you would lose a lot of value and power. So that's kind of my historical approach. I'm not someone who says you need to do each ritual exactly like that because that's how they did it. But it's a solid base to help you to take these experiences and put them in the right place within the system. I think that's how I see the historical aspect.
I like to see things like I think about like what rune is kind of like an active thing when I'm doing, like in my, in the state of being of the things I do, right? If I'm tending to the home, Othala is kind of popping out. If I'm out for a swim, Laguz kind of comes to mind, right? Even if it's just in a swimming pool and not literally a lake, right? Because it's just the little things in life and how you're going to find a rune of correspondence associated with that kind of thing. I'm getting together with a couple of friends that could be Awaz or it could be Manaz, depending on if it's more a meeting of the minds than a meeting of social connection. These are little discrepancies that I go with, and that's just kind of part of how the runes kind of come alive, and it's like the Norns giving me little hints as I walk through my day.
That's I absolutely agree with that. I mean, that's when you start to realize that these abstract symbols have become something real for you. When they start to appear naturally within your thought process and within your experience without you having to sit down and think, oh, what rune does this represent? By just being in a situation and realizing, oh, this is like really a Hoggalos moment. And it's also he knows what I'm talking about.
It's not as bad as the Uwaj moment, though.
And the other thing that I find very useful about making these symbols come alive is also, I mean, one difficulty if you do this kind of work is that there are no real words to describe these experiences that you have because they're beyond semantics. And these symbols can help very much to convey content of an experience to someone else who works with the system that you could not really put into words. So I found that also to be a very useful aspect of working with that system and really make it come alive. So as I said, when I said Hoggalos experience, you immediately knew what I'm talking about. And it would be very hard to put that into words, about this feeling of everything goes wrong and everything crumbles. But the connotations that come with this symbol in itself are just magnitude. Yeah. That's very powerful.
I could just tell my occultist friend, man, this place is real 4 cups. I'm getting the fuck out, right? It's boring, right? This is the magical language we speak.
That is funny. What is the difference, if there is one to you? What is the difference between meditating on a rune and using a rune magically?
Well, meditation, first and foremost, is to get a deeper understanding of a concept. And magic is to really apply that concept for a very specific outcome. But after time, they start to blend together because certain states of mind automatically evoke a certain rune, or wanting to achieve something automatically triggers you getting into that state of mind or visualizing or feeling that kind of mindset that is connected to that rune. So I think in the beginning, there's quite a difference between the two, because first you need to learn the system, you need to get in touch with it, and then you need to apply it. But once it really comes alive, the two kind of merge in a way. Most you still can, if you have a very specific thing. I do not do lots of specific workings. to be honest. Like I rarely do a working to get a bigger house or something like really concrete anymore. So, but you still could do that if circumstances really, if you really need money, for example, do a Fehu working, and I'm pretty sure the necessary funds will show up if it's good for you. If not, they probably won't. But yeah, after time, that it kind of becomes it becomes a natural thing to just connect these two. At least for me, it is like that.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. You had me thinking about even my own experiences. I could almost see that like becoming a revolving door. Like even like you meditate on it, you get new ideas, and you can apply that to your ritual practice. And like I'm thinking about myself leaving it with like tarot because Zeroleth attributed it to tarot. I guess that probably gave me the idea. That I remember even just back in the day. I mean, this is how I did it, and I also was very extra and was a ceremonial magician. But you know, if I was to go meditate on a tarot card, I wouldn't even just like sit down and just meditate on it. I would actually set up like a whole ritual to banish. You know, I'd probably end up doing the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, the hexagram. I'd probably end up doing like the middle pillar meditation, and then I would sit down and meditate or stand and meditate on the card. So then, like, I mean, now it's already part of a magical working anyway. And I guess if you also kind of want to look at what we were saying earlier, if you're meditating on it and it's supposed to create change inside the practitioner, is that meditation kind of like the vehicle for the magic to take place anyway? So I think even when I originally wrote that question, I wasn't even thinking of it. I was thinking of it very much in the way you kind of answered it. But I do see how there's a loop in there too, I think.
The meditation is kind of like the primer for the state of mind that is able to kind of receive the change.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Very interesting stuff when it comes to staring at sigils for a while.
We still got David. He just turned his camera off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to switch to my worst camera because my setup is not great at the moment. So my
fantastic.
battery is running out. So before I lose you, I switched to a lower resolution picture. But I'm back now.
Did any of you have any other questions or anything? Because I may wrap it up in like another 1 or 2 questions.
Yeah, no, I think I'm good. I mean, I think the thing that I would like to say, if my question is that, David, I think that you have the correct approach to the runes. I think you got it right. I think you nailed it. I'm very excited to read your book.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Give me feedback on it if you have read it. I'm happy to hear your thoughts on it.
For sure.
Always interesting to get feedback.
Once people have read your book and they want to get started with the relationship with the runes, what would be the way that you would guide them to say, do these things with the runes first?
Well, the book is structured in a way that each chapter about each rune has a practical application section in it, so that you can immediately start to do a couple exercises to get in touch with the nature of that rune. And my experience is that if you truly want to work with the system, if you're sincere about wanting to transform yourself, you just have to start somewhere. Pick the rune that speaks most to you, or start with the first one and work through the 24 runes. I don't think it matters that much, but you need to be inspired to really get into it and take it seriously. And from there, things will just start happening. And then just follow the weirdness and you will have a great ride. And yeah, strange things will happen. And
and watch out for Hagalas and Yuwas. That's all I'll say.
Even those need have their place, you know.
Of course they do.
It's just not something I would tinker with as a beginner. Let's say.
No,
you have a choice. Usually with Hagalas, you don't have a choice. It just shows up, and then that's where you are.
Right.
But
One thing I did want to ask, I always ask a lot of the authors on the show if I remember. What's one thing, if you know, if there's multiple things, that's fine. But if you can give us at least one thing that you hope the readers take from this book or get out of it.
I hope they see that this is a living system and not this is not just intellectual exercise. It is not a book to be read and then make a post about it and put it back in the shelf. This is really something that you have to practice in order to understand what I'm talking about. And I hope that many people try at least one or two exercises, and then they will get results. And I hope that will hook them to do more study, to get deeper into it, to do more exercises, I mean, even if they find a different path afterwards, I'm not trying to convert people to the Norse system. That's not what I'm about, but I just want to get people started to do the work, to work on themselves, to transform themselves. And once you start with that, it's very addictive. You will not stop, most probably. So I hope it's an entry point for people into that system, and maybe for some people really a way to reconnect to their roots, to nature, to the universe itself. And yeah, it's really thought to be an entry point for people to get started with the whole process.
That was great. I love that, man. Thank you. I guess everybody else is good. We're about on an hour already.
I never flashed my ink once.
Okay.
This is my own bind room, by the way, if you want to see a little bit of my magic, right?
Okay.
So I crafted that myself and commissioned the artist to put it on me, and it's a real strength conditioning rune. That's what it's for.
Very nice, Zarla.
If I didn't already have knuckle tattoos, I'd get runes. It's too late.
Yeah. But David, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I thought that was a great chat. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Before we wrap it up, I'll let Sanray and Zaralath let everybody know where they can find them. Go ahead, Sanray. Let everybody know where they can find them.
Yeah, come check us out at the Order of Chaos Occult University. I give a lecture every Wednesday night. We do a live Q&A every Sunday. You will get more. You get more one-on-one interaction with me by joining my school than you will with any other occult teacher out there, which is kind of the whole thing. We do guest lectures, and it's a lot of fun. And we've got a great community, so come check it out. www.theorderofchaosmagic.com and pre-order Chaos Witchcraft on Amazon now.
Hell yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, Sanray. I always appreciate you here. And Zaralath, my man, thank you so much for coming on.
All right. I am Zaralath Eternal. You can find me on Zaralath Eternal at YouTube, Zaralath at yahoo.com to hit me up for tarot rune reading. Well, in business in general, you know, if you're interested in working with me in some capacity or whatever, Zaralath at yahoo.com. Shoot, didn't I mention something else at the beginning of the show and now I'm brain farting on it? All these different
like you did, yeah.
I'm there and I'm not there. But Zaralath Shreds for my music. And you know, you check out my channel. I cover a plethora of things. Sometimes I'm magic, sometimes I'm current events and other things. I'm current events right now. All right. So you'll see me bitching and complaining about the situation in Iran if you go to the channel now, but you go far enough back. I've read books.
Ragnarok.
Yeah, this is the best apocalypse ever. I don't know. I didn't know the Fimbulvitter was going to be this warm. All right.
Yeah, funny, dude.
David gets that joke.
And David, please let everybody know what's up with your book and anything else that you would like to promote, advertise upon.
The book comes out on the 9th of June, I think. You can find it on Amazon with Inner Traditions and on other like Simon & Schuster and stuff. You can find my website about the book at livingrunes.ch. You can also email me there if you ever want to get in contact. Also for people that have podcasts and everything, I always enjoy talking to people that are interested in the topic or that have questions to the book. And the website will grow over time. At the moment, it's just for the book, but it will become a kind of Norse mythology portal where I will upload more work, not just books, but also at the moment I'm doing some work on the over 150 recorded names of Odin and stuff like that. So yeah, check it out from time to time. And yeah, it was great being here. I enjoyed it a lot.
Hell yeah, no, I
Yeah,
really,
yeah.
really enjoyed it. Thank you very much for coming on, David.
Very good to meet you, David, and Zerolith also. Nice to meet you guys.
You know what I forgot? It was Stein Fox in my readings that I do on the Sundays. That's what I forgot.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, there, done.
There you go. He made sure that you found out that you mentioned it. Thank you, Stein. And we'll be talking to you soon, hopefully, ourselves. We got to get him back on. He's a cool dude. I really like Stein. Awesome dude. Again, thank you all for coming on the show. Thank you, everybody in the chat. That's what's up. I appreciate all the questions or comments or whatever is going on in there. That's why we go live. And until the next one, everybody be well. Later.